Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of America Unhinged. I'm Wajahat, and this is the 1-year anniversary of Zeteo. This right here is Francesca Fiorentini.
I'm the other way. Hi, what's up? Welcome to America Unhinged. We are the America. We are Zeteo's live show on YouTube that is tracking the first 100 days of Trump's second term in office. And we're 86 days strong or weak, or I don't know, some days we're strong, some days we're weak, according to the markets, into truly what can only be described as a constitutional crisis. The only question, Waj, is when did the constitutional crisis begin? Did it begin as soon as we even had a president, Donald Trump, who was twice impeached and tried to overturn a Democratic election with a bunch of thugs? Or is it now where we are openly defying the Supreme Court, which we will get into a little bit later? But first, really breaking news, critical piece of footage here everyone needs to check out. JD Vance dropping, what trophy was this again? I don't do sports. It was an important one.
Well, I actually didn't see this. I saw the trophy, but it has to be college football, right? Someone let me know. I think it's a college football trophy, and it's literally breaking news. Literally breaking news. Ohio State's national trophy. Just, an amazing metaphor. Sometimes the universe gives you these gifts and you have to embrace it, Francesca. You have to say, thank you, universe. Give me more. If only JD Vance had sure hands and could capture and catch that trophy.
It was
but no,
too heavy for him. His little, beta arms couldn't carry something so heavy. Must have been made in China. Yes, obviously that was the
you had to take that China crack.
I was going to say either made in America. I don't know where it was made, but it was funny. Let's just play it again. It's just so good.
Breaking trophies like they're breaking the economy. This, my friends, is the Trump administration. And on the show today, we'll be covering all the chaos. Yes, there's so much chaos, such as, Donald Trump being a fascist leader who is openly defying the Supreme Court and federal judges and trying to, and unfortunately, as of now, successfully kidnapping and deporting legal immigrants, and also open to deporting American citizens. Yep, folks, they're openly telling you their evil bond plan. And today is also tax day. It is a terrible day for most people, unless you're a billionaire, because, folks, guess what? They've even rigged that system, and you won't have to pay taxes if you're the 1%. But we got some good news today, folks. We're going to be joined by Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey, a Democrat who's going to talk about how he's standing up to MAGA money that is trying to infiltrate his primary election because he dared to stand up against Donald Trump.
And then, of course, some good news. Not all universities are caving to Donald Trump, and we'll let you know which one is standing up in our good news portion. But remember, guys, this is Zeteo, and Zeteo started about a year ago. Mehdi Hassan broke away and from the mainstream, arguably by telling a little bit too much of the truth. And he has amassed just an incredible host of contributors and columnists and excellent journalists and analysts, present company included. And so it would be so amazing if you guys took this 1-year birthday and decided to just level up your support of Zeteo, either by being a paid member over on Zeteo.com, by giving a super chat today through YouTube, or just liking and sharing the stream. That is very free. And you can just be like, hey, this is what I watch Tuesdays, Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You should watch it with me, America Unhinged. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for everyone who supported us in these 86 days. And we still have 14 more to go.
And he's like the brown Nick Fury. He's been assembling great progressive voices. He's like, let me get a Francesca, let me get a Cori Bush, let me get a Jabal Bowman, let me get a Naomi Klein, let me get a Taylor Lorenz. It has been a stunning slew of amazing guest contributors who have come on to Zeteo and they've built it out. Most media ventures, folks, as you know, they fail, but Zeteo is thriving and growing. So as Francesca said, please like, please subscribe, and please be a super chatter and go to the Zeteo donation page. But first, it is tax day, April 15th. How are you feeling, Francesca?
Terrible, terrible. I don't like living with two assholes because I did get ripped a new one. And you might think, yeah, that's kind of expedient, two assholes. No, it's not. It's doesn't feel good. But then again, I am not a billionaire or a corporation that avoids paying taxes.
Yet. You're not a billionaire yet. Because, there's so much money in being progressive and telling the truth. Folks, in addition to the pain of tax day, we're in another new nightmare because Doge, run by the richest man on earth, has decided to gut IRS, much like they've decided to gut, the Department of Education, and, also USAID. And the reason why they've decided to gut IRS is because they want to make sure the IRS doesn't have time to, quote, look for certain cases. Do you want to take a guess, Francesca, what those cases might be?
I don't know. Let's see. A regime bought for and paid for by billionaires. I'm going to guess billionaires.
You are absolutely correct. Because of the obscene cuts that Doge has made to the IRS, which includes cutting up to 40% of its workforce, the team that looks into audits of billionaires and the 1% and the elite who don't pay their fair share of taxes, folks, this year they're just going to have to give it a little punt and a pass because, they got to do the rest of the stuff. The IRS is planning to cut up to 40% of its workforce after wrapping up this year's tax filing season. An internal memo obtained by Federal News Network states the IRS will begin sending out bi-weekly reduction in force notices starting this week. And by the end of these workforce reduction efforts, the IRS will go from a robust workforce of 102,000 employees to approximately 60 to 70,000 employees. New York Times just came out with the news a few hours ago that 22,000 employees will take the buyout. So that number is even going to increase more. The IRS will conduct the reduction in forces in two phases and will target more severe cuts in specific offices. I wonder which offices. The memo states, quote, taxpayer services and compliance will need to be trimmed. So if you're a billionaire or the 1% who goes through all the gobbledygook with your accountants and lawyers to avoid paying taxes or to cheat America, even though you're the richest people on earth, Christmas came both late and early.
Yeah, and let's just remind people why, when you have fewer IRS workers, when you have less money in the IRS, you have less resources to go after people who have many assets, who have more complicated tax filings, who have more accountants and more ability to hide their funds and their earnings wherever they may be. It's easier to go after people making $50,000, $60,000 a year who don't own a bunch of property or a bunch of businesses. That's super easy. So you're going to get audited if you're an average American. But if you're a rich person, you get nixed out of that. And remember that the Joe Biden administration tried to expand the IRS, fully fund it, in order to the stats on this are crazy, and I'm not remembering them offhand, but the amount of money that we could be bringing into this government, if you actually were concerned about funding the government or finding instances of waste, fraud, and abuse, going after wealthy tax dodgers is one way to do that. But look, Republicans and the rich saw the writing on the wall with Joe Biden, and they were like, never again. So that's why, of course, one of the biggest areas is going to be the IRS that Doge wants to cut because it's going to benefit Elon Musk and all of his homies. Meanwhile, people who he's not friends with, but whose labor he absolutely relies on, undocumented immigrants in this country, they also pay $96.7 billion in federal, state, and local taxes in 2022. That's according to the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. About $59.4 billion of that went to the federal government, $37.3 to state and local governments. It found that even a 10% decrease in the number of undocumented immigrants filing their taxes would mean a decrease of $9.5 billion a year in tax revenue. Again, remember, undocumented people pay their taxes, even though many of them are unable to reap the benefits of the money that they're paying into the system, right? Social Security withholding, on and on and on. And they register with the IRS. They're not able to vote when they register with the IRS, but they are able to have money from their paycheck removed. And now that the IRS and ICE are actually sharing immigrants' information in order to deport those who are working legally in this country, It tells you all you need to know about who the real enemies are and who this administration is painting as the criminals, as the enemies. In fact, according to one study, Americans for Tax Fairness, undocumented immigrants also pay a higher effective tax rate than 55 of the largest corporations and several of the country's wealthiest individuals. To quote Waj, "Are you feeling great yet?"
I am not. And before we talk about legal immigrants who are being kidnapped and detained and deported, sent to their death, I want to remind everyone, there are three things that separate undocumented immigrants from Donald Trump. Number one, as Francesca mentioned, they pay their taxes, nearly to $100 billion worth of taxes that they pay and Donald Trump doesn't pay. Number two, they commit fewer crimes than people that were born here. Donald Trump is a convicted criminal who was held liable for rape and defamation and who defrauded the state of New York and people who were dumb enough and, honestly gullible enough to give money to his university and to his charity. And number three, immigrants and undocumented immigrants are a boon to local and national economies, whereas Donald Trump has been bankrupted 6 times, twice for casinos, and currently is underwater in his ratings because of his unilateral failed trade war. So maybe, just maybe, we should respect, reward, and, uplift the immigrants who are doing the things to make America great again. But that's just me, Francesca. That's just me.
No, and thank you for always reminding us of the list and ways. Undocumented people in this country are better for us than Donald Trump and his lackeys. And speaking of one of those lackeys, the cool dictator, everybody, the dictator Trump wishes he was, the crypto dictator of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, who has been systematically and without due process sweeping the people of El Salvador up into prisons, many of whom are also innocent, just like the 238 men who were sent from the United States, Venezuelan, as well as Salvadoran. He visited the White House just yesterday, and it was pretty darn creepy. This is, as the administration says, they are not going to be returning Abrego Garcia, who is, again, the Maryland father who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. The Trump administration, and this is wild. We were all like, how are they going to spin this? They basically said they have no legal obligation to arrange for the return of Abrego Garcia. And in fact, that the Supreme Court's ruling on Thursday is in their favor. They told the federal judge they don't interpret it as facilitating Kilmar Abrego's release, as obligating the administration to do anything more than just adjust his immigration status to admit him if the El Salvador government chooses to release him. So we don't got to do anything so long as El Salvador keeps him in Secot, which is, I really want us to understand how terrifying that is, especially for his family, to say, okay, so now you're relying on El Salvador to keep him in that prison. Otherwise, there might be an order to have him sent back to us. So you're now relying on him to actually be in this, again, prison where you cannot go outside. There are death sentences. People cannot receive visitors. We're going to dig into this.
And he was given withholding of removal legally by a judge. So he's legally here. He was giving withholding of removal because an immigration judge found that he had proven that if he were to return to El Salvador, his home country, he would be under threat. So he was kidnapped and sent to El Salvador, a country that he escaped. And a judge said, yeah, you would actually be persecuted. That's where Garcia is right now, folks. Imagine the fear. Imagine the cruelty. You don't have to imagine because it's happening in real time. Sorry, Francesca. I just want to remind people.
No. And just to, go over that, obviously he's innocent. He's not a member of MS-13. We're going to hear many people claim to the contrary, but this is DHS's own assessment and ICE's own assessment saying that they were aware of this grant, as Waj referenced, of withholding of removal at the time of his removal from the U.S. Abrego was not on the initial manifest of the flight to El Salvador. He was an alternate. There's like understudies to get swept up into the gulag. As others, like if they don't find Waj, they'll just get me, right? They'll be like, oh, you were the understudy to Waj. And I'll be like, damn it. Damn it, it's him you want. No.
It's not me. I'm half white.
I'm half white. Italians are like, Italians aren't white anymore. Damn it. Wow, we're going that far back. The manifest did not indicate that Abrego Garcia should be removed. Through an administrative error, he was removed from the U.S. to El Salvador. This was an oversight, and the removal was carried out in good faith based on the existence of a final order of removal and Abrego Garcia's purported membership in MS-13. So they admit that they were like, okay, we know it was wrong, but like in good faith, it was just an oversight. Okay, well then return him. Return him. 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. Return him. But no, this is Pam Bondi this week saying that Abrego Garcia is a member of MS-13.
Jesse, you know, when you're listening to all these liberal reporters, they keep calling him a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's part of a foreign terrorist organization. He's a member of MS-13 who, as you laid out in your monologue, came to this country and committed just gang acts. He was caught, and he was two judges, an immigration judge and an appellate judge, ruled that he was an MS-13 member, as well as ICE's testimony. Yet his attorneys are saying he's not affiliated with the gang. They're wrong, and he has no right to be there.
Everything she said, this is very important. Everything she said is a lie. That's the Attorney General of the United States of America with a cross. How shameless, how disgusting, how hypocritical that you lie to the American public by brandishing a cross, right? And then saying, I'm a Christian woman, by literally lying to us to our face. We can read the court documents. This man has been here for 5 years. An immigration judge said, I give you withholding of removal. There was one person, Francesca, one person who alleged that he was a gang member in New York. He's never been to New York. The investigator, the cop who was responsible, was suspended, right? Despite all this, a judge said, nah, I believe you. Withholding of removal. He's been here for 5 years in Maryland, got married to a U.S. citizen, has 3 kids. One of those kids is 5 years old, has autism. They kidnapped him, deported him, sent him to a prison, admitted, as you said, Francesca, that they had an error. And now she comes on and lies. That it was the most, it's so egregiously shameless. You know, you and me and Mehdi talk about this. How do you shame shameless people? I have no answer, because she knows it's a lie, and she just goes on television as the Attorney General and shamelessly lies with the cross dangling around her neck. I had to rant for a moment.
I mean, look, there's going to be a prayer room introduced into the White House, or a faith room, or office of faith, or some crap like that. These people need God immediately, because
crossplay. I love it, Tracy. That's hilarious.
I don't get it.
Cosplay, crossplay. Get it? Cosplay. She's crossplaying with the cross.
Oh yes, I get it now. Yeah, love it, love it, love it. It sounded weirder to me. Anyway, yeah, no, gang acts, yeah, and then that's doubled down on, obviously, by Caroline Leavitt, who initially had this little snippy, awful thing to say about this innocent man.
Based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year.
Oh, yeah. You'd think we'd... Oh, he does not even have a mug that says best dad ever, okay? Okay, let's see he was the worst dad. Let's see he was a terrible... In fact, he was just an absent father. But he wasn't a criminal. Does he deserve to be deported to a foreign gulag and get a life sentence, never to be returned again? Have his head shaven? Sit him in like, you know, in a tiny cell with a bunch of other prisoners? No. So I don't understand.
Maybe he'd be elected president.
Right, exactly. He could be president one day. Hey, terrible dad, you too can be president. It's just wild to me to be like, and I think it's really revealing, Waj, because we are being told that undocumented immigrants, whether their status is legal or not, are not human. They're not human, and they're not subject, because they're not human, they're not subject to the same rules that you and I are subjected to. And so it's okay if he, you know, wasn't a gang leader. Who knows? He was part of it. He had legal status. He didn't. It doesn't matter. Stop acting like he was a good guy. We just deported him. He's undocumented. Get on our white nationalist level. That's what we're being asked to do. Here's what else she had to say, which echoes Pam Bondi's villainization of this poor man.
Abrego Garcia was a foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. He illegally came into our country. And so deporting him back to El Salvador was always going to be the end result.
Oh, he's also now doing human trafficking. I think I heard he brought down the Titanic. I think he made us lose the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
He did everything.
He was on the grassy knoll. The JFK
he was on the grassy knoll.
Just revealed that.
He helped load the bullets.
Yes, he did.
Immigrants doing all the work, even for our own homegrown white terrorists and killers.
Yeah, just put it all on this one guy. Now, of course, the question is will the president of El Salvador follow suit? What does he think? He does have the power, as the United States has the power, to remove Kilmar Abrego Garcia from this detention center, this prison. And here was Bukele with Donald Trump saying no, calling him even one step farther, calling him a terrorist.
Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you could release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back?
He's returned immigrants before. Bukele has returned immigrants who were sent to El Salvador, specifically women. So, folks, Donald Trump, the most powerful man on earth, a man who's going to make the entire world bend the knee to his unilateral trade war, a man who's going to just grab Greenland by the vagina and take Canada, is letting you know that he's a cuck, that he cannot pick up the phone, or forget picking up the phone, Francesca, just turn it to Bukele right there. Hey, my bad, Bukele. We made a mistake. Bring him back. You think Bukele, who takes $6 million of our taxpayer dollars to have these 230 plus immigrants, whom the 60 Minutes said that 97% of them, 75%, zero criminal charges, 22% nonviolent criminal charges. You're thinking that Bukele is going to say no to Donald Trump?
No, and I mean, what's even more terrifying is during this meeting, Donald Trump floated openly the idea of detaining American citizens in Salvadoran jails, prisons, and that they would, build those new facilities for that. So it is fascism, guys. That is exactly what this is. And it is on us to stand up against it, to do something about it. This case is one case, but 9-0, guys, on this Supreme Court. Are you kidding me? And look, Senator Chris Van Hollen, who is the Maryland senator where Abrego Garcia is from, asked the U.S. ambassador to El Salvador to meet with Bukele during his visit. It doesn't seem like he received an answer. He met with Abrego Garcia's wife, mother, brother. He says, I'm extremely worried about his health. And he now said this today, late breaking, Abrego Garcia was illegally abducted by the Trump administration and by their own admission, wrongly deported to El Salvador. He shouldn't have to spend another second away from his family. I'm flying to El Salvador tomorrow to check in on his condition and discuss his return. This is important. I think it will be worthwhile seeing a bunch of Salvadoran guards preventing a U.S. senator from entering those premises, because I do not think he will be allowed there. He will obviously not be allowed to visit. And I've been thinking this whole time, Waj, like, I wish Abrego Garcia and the other people who were taken unjustly could know that people are fighting for them, that Americans, that citizens and non-citizens, lawyers, experts, journalists, that we're fighting for them. We're thinking about them. I don't know we have any confirmation that they even know that a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling went in his favor. I don't know if it would make him feel better, but that's just something that's been racing through my mind this entire time.
Or if he's alive, folks. We don't know if he's alive. And I think a bunch of Democratic senators should join Senator Van Hollen, go as a group. Keep this in the news, folks.
Yes.
Because more and more that judges, the more and more the press, the more and more that NGOs and lawyers are speaking up, the more and more people are saying, I don't know, man. I feel kind of bad about sending a dude who's just like a father, and then on top of Rumeza Ozturk, a hijabi girl who got like just picked up and kidnapped middle of the street and just for co-writing an op-ed. I don't feel good about that. You have to keep it in the news, folks. And speaking about the news, everything we've talked about for the past 12 minutes, you would think it's horrific. You would use words like cruel, illegal, barbaric. And this is why we have Zeteo and independent media and people like me and Francesca trying to do our work. This is how the New York Times talked about all of these legal issues that Donald Trump is facing right now. Wait for it. Here you go. In showdown with the courts, Trump is increasingly combative. Scholars say that the Trump administration is now flirting with lawless defiance of court orders, a path with an uncertain end. Maybe Trump will bring some chocolate, maybe some roses. Maybe he'll grab the law by the pussy. We don't know. But right now, he's just flirting with combative defiance.
Increasingly,
folks, it pissed me off. I had to share that.
Yeah, this is like a rescue dog checking in. You know, well, he's increasingly combative. No, the dog wants your throat, man. Like, and that is, I know people are going to say, and it is rude. Rescue dogs should not be compared to Donald Trump. But that's just so pathetic. And
I just heard Mel. Go ahead.
No. It reminds me. I mean, we started this show the week that Elon Musk threw his heart out, in quotes, and mainstream news kept on telling us what he did twice was not what he did. What is that? I don't know. And understand, like, these outlets weren't built for this.
They're not made for this moment.
For you, with you, it's like their job is to wash, is to normalize everything that we're seeing. This is fascism. This is ignoring the courts. These are your courts. So, like, call it what it is. It is here. This is a 5, 6, 7, 8 alarm fire, and the New York Times needs to start acting like it.
We have been using the F word for a while. Myself, Francesca, and Mehdi and Zeteo fascism. We have been using the A word, authoritarianism. That's the type of language that describes what we're witnessing, where not just the Supreme Court, but we're going to find out in a second, even a federal judge came out hard against Donald Trump and this administration. I want to give you the ruling of a federal judge who ordered an intense 2-week inquiry just today, folks, into the Trump administration's refusal to return Abrego Garcia, who was wrongly deported, again, according to the Trump administration, from Maryland to an El Salvador prison. Quote, to date, what the record shows is that nothing has been done. Nothing, according to U.S. District Judge Paula Shinas, who said at a court hearing on Tuesday, her order sets up a high-stakes sprint that may force senior Trump administration officials to testify under oath about their response to court orders requiring them to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States. Each day that passes, she noted, is another day that Abrego Garcia spends improperly detained in a maximum security MAGA prison. And MAGA, you better think twice, because what she's doing, she's setting up a paper trail. She's setting up something that the Trump administration wants to avoid, compelling evidence, right? Bringing forth, what's the evidence that shows that Garcia is an undocumented citizen? What's the evidence that shows that who was wrong? Who called them an administrative error? Why did they call them an administrative error? So it's best for the Trump administration, if you're listening, pick up the phone, call Bukele, bring him home. And speaking about him not being the father of the year, what Caroline Levitt says, let's actually listen to his wife. This is what she had to say today.
Kilmar, if you can hear me, stay strong. God hasn't forgotten about you. Our children are asking, when would you come home? And I pray for the day I tell them the time and date that you'll return. As we continue through Holy Week, my heart aches for my husband, who should have been here leading our Easter prayers. Instead, I find myself pleading with the Trump administration and the Bukele administration to stop playing political games with the life of Kilmar.
This should hurt your heart. And instead of constricting your heart, it should expand it to be empathetic for not just Abrego Garcia, but also the 230 plus individuals who were kidnapped and sent to El Salvador without due process, including the students, legal students who were kidnapped and detained, Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeza Ozturk. And just this week, folks, Now we have this administration doubling down on deportations, arresting a green card holder who went to a citizenship interview. Mohsen Madawi arrived at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services offices in Vermont, thinking that he would take a test, to become a naturalized citizen. He was here for 10 years, a pro-Palestinian activist student, 0 crimes, 0 criminal charges. Instead, the agents arrested him and began process to deport him to the occupied West Bank. He is a leader, another leader on the campus protest movements against Israel's war in Gaza, another green card holder. Folks, he has confronted and denounced anti-Semitism publicly. He was on 60 Minutes. He is a public leader, 0 criminal charges, and now they want to deport him back to occupied West Bank, which is, by the way, folks, suffering under an apartheid system. Not my words for it. Amnesty International, Jimmy Carter, and the Israeli military is increasingly suffocating the Palestinians who live in a 2-tiered system of justice, unequal laws, unequal systems. He has lost 2 cousins since the October 7th attacks, and his family members' homes have been destroyed. As he went there to become a citizen and take a citizenship test, they arrested him. And the last video footage we have of him is him flashing a peace sign as he was taken away by ICE agents.
I mean, it is so, it's almost satirical how the idea of deporting somebody to the West Bank, a place that Donald Trump, thanks to the money that Miriam Adelson, Sheldon Adelson, casino magnates, surviving wife gave him, Trump administration's plan is to help Israel annex the entire West Bank. So you're deporting him to a place that your country supports annexing, bombing, maiming, occupying, destroying, ethnically cleansing. And so, look, Mohsen was a model citizen. Mohsen, I don't exactly know if I'm pronouncing. He's a model citizen. He's about to be a citizen. So what they're doing is they're using people who are registering with immigration forces. They're going, meeting their deadlines. They're checking in with ICE. He was showing up ostensibly for a citizenship interview, right? Long awaited as a green card holder. And that's when they decide to sweep him up. This is quite honestly pushing people into the shadows, ensuring that the country becomes less safe, not only for the immigrants who are here, but for all of us. Because when people live in the shadows, they don't call the police when there's actual crime. When they live in the shadows, they can't get a job above the table. So they move to illicit forms of work. This is basically creating the migrant crime that Donald Trump wants to root out. And of course it's racist and it's prejudicial, specifically because he's Palestinian, because he's Muslim, or I'm assuming he's Muslim, and because he's speaking out against genocide.
And so, Francesca, they're going after immigrants, legal immigrants, documented immigrants, and as they have said to you to your face, they're going after citizens. They're going after anyone who dares stand up to Donald Trump, including elected officials. And we are so happy to be joined by a person who is standing up, a Democratic Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey, whose primary race has been infiltrated by MAGA money just because he dares stand up to Donald Trump and what I refer to as an authoritarian regime. Mayor Gainey, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. We came in 2 minutes late, but Francesca was spitting some fire, and I know better than to get in between a Francesca rant. We really appreciate your patience being here. The primary race, your primary race, is a test. It's a test for MAGA, and MAGA's war on blue city mayors who stand up to Trump's fascistic agenda, specifically saying, you know what, we're going to stand up to you just coming in and kidnapping and detaining and deporting immigrants. Talk to us about how they have targeted you and infiltrated this race and why they're coming after your reelection campaign.
Well, I understand, and what it means to stand up to a dictator and be able to speak truth to power. And that's just the reality. When he first came out with Trump's ICE, the first thing that we said is that we would not be participating, nor will my police officers be participating with ICE, because I believe it creates an environment of fear and an environment of trauma. It's traumatic when every day you got to wake up and wonder when you come home if your mom and dad is going to be here. A separation of family doesn't bring peace, it brings trauma. And so at the end of the day, I didn't want to add to nobody's trauma. I wanted to make sure that they understood that there was a mayor that was going to stand up and be protective of the people that's been here for years and years and years. And all of a sudden, you want to be able to deport them just because you have the power to be. America's in a very strange time. It's the first time that I've ever seen in even study history that you have an elected president and you have an appointed president. So at the end of the day, we understand we have a two-tier president, and we have to be able to stand up. And mayors are on the front line. Don't get me wrong. I think what's going on in D.C. is very important. But the reality, in order to feel the pain of the people that's on the ground, that's what the mayors do every single day. We can feel the pain of the people that got to deal with ICE. We can feel the pain of the people that's being discriminated because of DEI. We can feel the pain of the LGBTQIA community. We can feel the pain of the seniors that need HUD for making sure that we have anti-discriminatory practices in place. We can feel the pain of veterans whose history is being erased. We can feel those pains. And as long as we can feel those pains, we can have the voice to be able to stand up to it.
Absolutely. Amen. And so what's been the pushback? I mean, like, I think you're absolutely right. The mayors are kind of this last line. Is sometimes we see, senators in Congress on the Democratic Party, kind of confirming Trump's nominees. So what is that meant for you politically? Is MAGA funding money into your primary challenger? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So in the month of January, my opponent took $160,000 from MAGA fund donors, and then on President's Day, he spent President's Day with some of the major operatives in the MAGA movement in the state of Pennsylvania, talking about how they can muddle the waters in this Democratic primary. So they've been involved with the primary from day one. But we understood that. We understood that we would be the first that would come under attack for our stance on how we were going to deal with ICE and everything else. But that's why I tell people the only way that we're going to change this situation if the people on the ground stand up and say no more. We can't stop the White House from doing what the White House is going to do. But the one thing that we can do is make sure that they don't go as far as they want to go. Because when the people start to rise up, and in any situation where we've had an oppressive government, an oppressive dictator, the one thing that has changed the game is the nation of people who have stood up and just said, we are not going to tolerate this. We're going to stand up for all these communities. And that's why my race is so important. My race is so important because at the end of the day, we need to give hope. Mayors give hope. And that's why I tell people we may have had a big money. We may not have had a big money that the MAGA give. But every money that we get, we use it to serve the people, to make sure we stand up to a dictator and tell him no more, particularly in the city of Pittsburgh.
You talk about mayors giving people hope. Mayors are connected to the everyday realities of folks, right? Infrastructure, schools, safety. You walk the walk, you talk the talk, and you earn people's trust. And you see Elon Musk, the richest man on earth, giving nearly $300 million to buy the presidency. Then he also spent $20 million in Wisconsin to tilt that Supreme Court and make it further right wing, putting all his money into I can say it, a complete MAGA freak, a complete right wing lunatic, right? Thankfully, he lost. That money did not get him a victory. In fact, all these Wisconsinites came up and he lost by 10 percentage points. Is that a bellwether for you? Once you saw all these Wisconsinites coming up saying, you know what, get your money out, get Elon Musk out, enough is enough. We're going to go behind this liberal judge, tilt the court 5-4, at least until 2028. And you saw MAGA money losing bigly. Is that a bellwether for your race and other races downstream?
I believe it is. I believe it continues to talk about why we have to come together. But it makes a statement about what we talked about when I first came on, is that it's the people that's going to make a difference. It's the people. Because at the end of the day, it's the people whose pain we're going to feel. Mm-hmm. There's no justice in living in fear. There's no justice in having trauma every day. There's no justice in talking about you making America safe, but you're making it less safe because of the trauma you're putting on people. There's no fairness in that. There's no justice in that. Listen, the White House got a lot of anger. Anger is one letter short from danger. We are in dangerous times if we the people don't stand up and push back against this mega mess. That's what I call it, the mega mess. Because at the end of the day, I remember when Donald Trump was so big on Obama and his birther situation, and while he should not be in government or elected because he's not really born in America. But yeah, last time I checked, neither is Elon Musk. but you have no problem making sure that he's helping you run the government. We have to stand up as Americans to make sure that at the end of the day, we push back, because we always have.
I wanted to ask you about, we're in a moment where the right has accused, they love to go after mayors like yourself, right? They stoke fear about, it's always the Democratic mayors in blue cities who are ruining everything, on, and they're not serious about crime, even though they don't even live in the cities we're talking about. But in your tenure, how have you made Pittsburgh a livable place, a safer place? What is your vision of safety and social justice in opposition to, the kind of vision we see from Trump?
I tell people all the time, we came in, any mayor that came in after the pandemic was a different kind of mayor, because we've had a lot of mayors, but we have not had a lot of mayors that had to leave coming out of a pandemic. We reduced one homicide in any city, in my eyes, is one too many. But we reduced homicide in this city by 33%. We reduced gun violence in the city by 45%. We have been steadfast in building affordable housing, because it is my belief that affordable housing is a human right and everybody deserves to have affordable housing. We have built more affordable housing in this city than any administration in over 20 years. We are laser focused on making sure that we protect our children. Last year, our children between the ages of 13 and 17 in 2024, we had no homicides amongst that age group. That is amazing in itself. So when Trump came over, when Trump got elected, one of the first things that we did was we made sure that we huddled up with our Latino community. We huddled up with our LGBTQIA community. We huddled up with our African-American community to talk about some of their fears, because their fears are real. I had to make sure that they understood that they had a mayor that could feel their pain and would stand to them. And ever since we've done that, we knew what we come up. When I came out against ICE, I came out at the Pennsylvania Press Club in Harrisburg with all the news outlets there. And my first question was, would I participate with Trump's ICE? And I said no. And from that moment in time, my email chain looked like I really don't have the right adjectives to describe what my email chain looked like once I came out. But I did it because if not, then I should be seen as a mayor that's inflicting pain too. So I had a choice to make. Stand up, even though, let's be honest, you could be scared. There's a lot of people that want to stand up but are scared. But as long as you being scared doesn't turn into fear, use that ability and them butterflies to stand up and say that we don't want this type of America. We don't want America where people got to worry about their civil rights being rolled back. Come on. We fought too long for that.
Yep. We got the SAVE Act. We just talked about, this massive voter suppression bill coming down the pike that might get, approved by the Senate, is basically going back to like Jim Crow voter ID laws. But Waj, you wanted to say something?
No, I want to say, Mayor Gainey, what you are stressing is empathy, and you're stressing not constriction but expansion, something we talked about earlier. And you're seeing some Democrats go the opposite way, throwing certain vulnerable groups under the bus, right? Thinking they have to court the middle by throwing immigrants under the bus, undocumented immigrants, Muslims, LGBTQ. But your message seems to be the exact opposite. Can you tell us, if you will, this message, how it's resonating in your local community, and if that can inspire other Democratic leaders who sometimes are given the worst advice by people who are paid a lot of money, that, you know what, you don't have to throw the LGBTQ under the bus. You don't have to throw the undocumented under the bus. There is a way to lead a diverse community, because Pittsburgh diverse, right? It's a swing state, Pennsylvania, right? But not lean into our worst instincts, lean into the best instincts, and lean in with empathy, and a rising tide lifts all type of message.
All type of boats. And I tell people all the time, that's what I was just talking about. You went the opposite with it. And let me go back. People that are scared allow fear to paralyze their life, and they just go with the flow because they don't want to be primary. They're more in love with the title instead of being in love with the work. And sometimes when you fall in love with the title and not the work, you will do things to serve the title and not to serve the people. I'm the opposite. The title was just the key for me to be able to use my power in a way that uplifts all boats, just like you said. But you have to serve the people. And that's why I say the mayors are really your front line defense, There's no question about it. We're the ones that got to fight back against Trump coming into our Democratic primary and trying to muddle it up. We're the ones that got to deal with the real estate tycoons that don't want housing for all. We're the ones that have to deal with greedy CEOs of major nonprofits that don't want to pay their fair share, but want to see it on the back of other people. We're the ones that got to deal with the fact that our seniors are going to be nervous if their Social Security or Medicaid is cut. We're the ones that have to deal with it before DC even feels it. We're the one that has to deal with it. And so at the end of the day, that's why supporting your mayors at a local level is extremely important, particularly the ones that want to stand up, have stand up, and demonstrated the will to stand up. Because there's a difference between what we can do and what we will do. We all have the ability. The question is, do you have the will? And we have to stand up if we're going to keep America from going backwards instead of moving forward.
I mean, you're reminding me that, you know, what the biggest city in this country, in New York, has their mayoral primary coming up, and they've got two people running. One currently kind of is Tom Homan's little errand boy, honestly, because he's got charges that he wants dropped. You know, Mayor Eric Adams, and then you've got Andrew Cuomo, who's running, who basically is like, I like Trump. We're buddy. And you know, obviously we've interviewed Zohran Mamdani, but it's really nice it's refreshing to hear mayors who are not trying to strike deals and glad hand their way by selling out their own residents. And so I think that's incredible. You got the endorsement of the Working Families Party. You have earned that clearly. And I want you to let people know how they can get involved in your campaign if they're in Pittsburgh. What you're asking folks to do.
Shamelessly promote yourself, Mayor Gainey. That's
so one, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it. But if you go to mayoredgainey.com, all the information is right there. All you got to do is go, let me search gaineyformayor.com. I want to make sure I had it right. Gaineyformayor.com, and it'll give you all the information. You can find out anything you want to know about me. You can donate to the campaign. Listen, this is people power fighting power. And I understand that we're not going to raise the money that they raise just for the simple fact that they got the Trumpsters behind them. But that don't mean we can't raise enough money to make sure we win this. We're in position to win. We're doing an excellent job. And we're going to continue to stand up to dictators that don't love America and want to see America for all.
Mayor, can I ask you one quick question, even though it'll piss off my producer, Mel? A lot of folks in our chat, in our community, are inspired by what you're saying. They're your new fans. A lot of folks aren't mayors. They aren't elected officials. They don't have money. They're not on television. They're not on YouTube. They're just people trying their best, but they feel inspired. Your message to your fellow Americans who want to do something to fight back against the oligarchy, against the corruption, against the cruelty.
Yeah, you know what I tell people all the time? If you want America where everybody feels that they belong, that should be enough to get up. It should be enough. Because we know at the end of the day, if we don't stand up, we know what the outcome will be. It's not about being fearful, because what's going to happen is going to happen. But it is about how you stand up for your fellow American. Mm-hmm. It is how you stand up for your communities. It is how you fight the fight and be happy that you have an opportunity to be in this moment in time. I think a lot of us reject this moment in time because we see what's in the White House. You should ask yourself why you've been sent for this moment in time to fight. That's what you should ask yourself. Why are you two on here right now fighting for the rights that you're fighting for in this moment? You could have had a moment when everything was A-okay.
Yep.
But I think that there are some people that once they join this army, you can't be in that type of a situation. You two are on here fighting every single night to make America a better place. So I think the question that you ask people is, what will you do to make your community a better place?
Mayor Ed Gainey, inspiring words. He is running for reelection. MAGA money's running against him, but he's got a proven track record. Everybody check out Gainey for Pittsburgh, right? GaineyForMayor.com. GaineyForMayor.com and reelect Ed Gainey. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Y'all have a great night and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. God, I wish I could hear that kind of fight out of Karen Bass in LA.
That was a great guest. Thanks to mighty producer Mel. Mel got that for us in the last second, and she's like, "Trust me, he's dope." Yeah, can you imagine hearing that from I don't know, Gavin Newsom, governors, or I don't know, Chuck Schumer, instead of "We are aroused, everybody is aroused,
everybody's aroused, we will win." It's just like into bed. We have to talk about, of course, the segment that we do every single week, which highlights someone who was just the brownest of noses, the most pathetic of cucks, the person who bent the knee, the person who kissed the ring with a little bit too much tongue. That is our Reek of the week. Waj, your choice this week is who?
My Reek of the week, and there can be only one Reek, even there are so many Reeks, but this Reek is mine. It is Donald Trump is a repeat offender. This is the second time he's been a Reek of the week on America Unhinged. The first time was when a foreign leader, Netanyahu, visited, and we're like, my God, this is a man who is so reekish to Netanyahu. But now he is so reekish to Bukele. Yes, the crypto bro, wannabe fascist leader of El Salvador. He says no to our European allies, does trade wars against Canada, wants to take over Greenland. But for Bukele, he can't pick up the phone with his tiny fingers and call him and bring back, Abrego Garcia and all the other people who were kidnapped and detained or are now in a prison without due process. But this is what Donald Trump had to say when it comes to these homegrown criminals.
They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
Like you said earlier, when we were doing rehearsal, and by rehearsal, folks, we just go over the clips. People think we actually have rehearsal. It's not Alex Wagner playing Francesca and Ali Velshi playing me. But you said that was oddly specific of Trump, right? Like he gets stuff stuck in his mind.
You hit ladies in the back of the head with a bat when they're not looking. On Fifth Avenue. Like, why is it so specific? He's just, and also, I'm pretty sure that's already illegal. And it
is illegal to send Americans to foreign gulags. But guess what? They're open to sending citizens now. I wasn't making it up.
Deporting American citizens to Central American prisons. Is it legal, or do you need to change the law to do it?
Well, it's another question that the president has raised. It's a legal question that the president is looking into.
It's illegal. It is illegal. And as this is happening, he wants to outsource American prisoners, people who are legally here without due process, to El Salvador to be tortured. And guess what? Like I said before, your money, $6 million, has been sent to Bukele. So what does Donald Trump say? More.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders.
They were legally here. As 6 Minutes said, those 238 people who were sent to El Salvador were kidnapped, detained, deported without due process, 75% zero criminal convictions, Abrego Garcia being one of them, 22% nonviolent offenses. You have people like pro-Palestinian activists and students, Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeysa Ozturk, and Mohsen now, again, legally here, zero criminal charges, being detained in prisons. And now he wants to send citizens to foreign gulags. Do you think we're exaggerating? Listen to his own words, folks. American citizens being sent, outsourced to foreign prisons to be tortured or, God forbid, even killed with your taxpayer dollars. That is my Reek of the week, Donald Trump.
It's a good one. This is a guy who is so delusional, and I think the right is so delusional about the corollaries between the United States and El Salvador. There aren't very many corollaries. There's a reason people leave El Salvador to come to the US. Oh, why? It's because we don't have the gang violence, the crime rates that El Salvador has, in part because we are not on the receiving end of a 50-year failed drug war that the United States has waged upon us. But I'll leave that aside. I mean, it is incredible to me that you are fawning over this person as if, again, you're constructing a narrative about crime in this country that simply doesn't exist and certainly does not exist in the immigrant community. So it might be kind of natural that he would say, well, what about just regular criminals? And what's funny about the idea of using homegrown criminals is because years ago, the FBI under Christopher Wray was saying, actually, the biggest threat to Americans right now are domestic terrorists, homegrown criminals. But they weren't talking about ISIS, radicalized extremists. No, they were talking about white anti-government militias and white nationalist organizations that are, yes, a threat to Americans. And we saw an outgrowth of that in Charlottesville in 2017, and also on January 6th. And the likes of whom have now been released back into the public. So unless he's talking about recapturing the people that he released from prison for their crimes on January 6th, then I want nothing to do with this, nor should any American. And it is chilling and it is disgusting. And honestly, it's incredible that the media is like, so how are you going to do this? You're gonna write new laws or just ignore the ones that exist?
Tell us how, even though we know it's illegal. And even though, like you mentioned, you pardoned 1,600 insurrectionists, including people who were violent and had violent criminal offenses. And since being released, guess what? Did some more violent shit. And not only that, folks, some news I always try to bring up on America Unhinged because it gets buried. In addition to pardoning 1,600 people, including people who literally were convicted for seditious conspiracy, Donald Trump is open to compensating them. So if you were just sitting there, folks, and this is the F around and find out moment of the story, this is the find out moment. If you thought, just brown people will go, meh, undocumented, meh, the immigrants, meh, Mexicans, Muslims, they're talking about American citizens. But before we leave, we always give you good news. And Francesca is here for the good news. Francesca, tell me something good.
Yes. I've been actually just aghast at how, higher and institutions of higher learning have bent the knee to Donald Trump. We know that Columbia University effectively implemented all of Trump's policy changes, his recommendations. They have now what is effectively like an overseer of their Middle East Studies Department, Palestinian Studies Department, trying to make sure that it doesn't lose any funding. Well, one Ivy League is standing up, and that is Harvard. Harvard is saying they are not going to comply with Trump's demands. Yes, he's got demands, which is basically a list for them to eradicate any kind of DEI programs, any kind of diversity in admissions. They want everything to be merit-based, which again is shorthand for if you're a person of color or a woman or a queer person applying to college, you're somehow not qualified. But Harvard is pushed back, and they've said the administration's prescription goes beyond the power of the federal government. It limits Harvard's First Amendment rights, exceeds the statutory limits of the government's authority under Title 6. Thank you. I can read. I skip Roman numerals.
I had faith in you. That's why I didn't come in. I'm like, she's going to get it.
9/11/6.
She's going to get it.
And it.
Math not forte.
Don't make me laugh. I'm coughing. Okay, we're in the good news part, but that was really funny. She'll get it eventually. No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, or which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. Our motto, Veritas or Truth, guides us as we navigate the challenging path ahead. Blah, 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 Harvard stuff. But that is very good. That is amazing, in fact. And again, they refuse to basically do all the things that Columbia University did, including banning masks on campus. Remember how Columbia banned masks? Reducing the power of faculty administrators that the Republican administration is called committed to activism. And because of that, they're losing massive funding. So $2.2 billion in multi-year grants, $60 million in multi-year contract values at Harvard University. So it's big. It is a massive hit for them to do this. But look, I think they will be rewarded.
Yep.
Alumni. Look, I think a lot of this is what I think about it. I know a lot of Columbia alum. Imagine if Columbia did the opposite, stood up to Donald Trump, said, no, we're not going to hand over our students. We're going to protect them and their free speech. We're going to keep people safe on this campus. On and on and on. All the money that they could be raising, the support that they could be raising to make up the difference that lost if the Trump administration decides to, take away their money. But instead, no. Instead, they became the ultimate Reek. And so I'm glad we have positive news. And of course, because of that, Trump is saying he's going to, maybe they should lose their tax exempt status and be taxed as a political entity. Oh, good Jesus, a political entity and a terrorist inspired or supporting sickness. But when we say fascism, when we say authoritarianism, you have to control institutions of higher learning.
Yep.
That is part of an ideological control of speech in this country and obedience, truly. So the fact that Harvard is going out on this is amazing, and I hope more universities join them.
And can I say this to Columbia, to quote Born Identity? Look what they made you give. Look what they made you give. And was it worth it? A year and a half of you being a Reek, which was, by the way, a Francesca's Reek in the past, Columbia University, a year and a half. And still it wasn't enough. I think Harvard saw how much Columbia lost of its reputation, of its legacy, of how this Trump administration, like any fascist regime, will not stop until they completely dismantle and take over the judiciary, the media, and like Francesca said, the universities. You take over those three, you control the mind, you control the narrative, you control the story, and you take out all the regulations. And they're trying to do that right now, folks, which is why you need a full-scale frontal resistance from each and every angle. I'm glad Harvard is finally stepping up. And speaking about resistance and speaking the truth and never bending the knee, this has been Zeteo's America Unhinged. Folks, this is the 1-year anniversary of Zeteo. You will never, ever, ever see a headline like this on Zeteo or a framing like this on our show, America Unhinged. This was the New York Times. We spent the past hour talking about Donald Trump administration literally becoming fascist, engaging in a constitutional crisis, kidnapping and deporting innocent people, and now going after citizens. And the New York Times said, Trump is increasingly combative and now flirting with lawless defiance of court orders. Folks, this is Zeteo, it's independent media. Please, if you have not, like this video. Please subscribe to Zeteo. Please, all the super chatters who gave us money, the $1.99, the $20, the $25, the $5, it goes such a long way. Please go to Zeteo's donation page. We will be back, folks, on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
Yes, and you can find me at Franny Fio, wherever you get your anythings, youtube.com/Franny Fio for the Bituation Room podcast. I'll also be live in San Francisco at Cobb's Comedy on May 7th with my husband, Matt Lieb. So get tickets to that, francescafiorentini.com. Waj, what about Left Hook?
And also the Substack. Tell them about the Substack.
frannyfio.substack.com. Become a subscriber. You'll get access to all of our bonus episodes.
I write for the Left Hook. It's the lefthook.substack.com. All content is free. I'm like Blanche Dubois. I depend on the kindness of strangers. Pay what you can. And I also co-host Democracy-ish with Danielle Moody Monday and Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Danielle Moody's YouTube channel.
And with that, until Thursday, America, keep your screws tight. We're going to need it. Bye-bye.